Okay, this is another basic triangulation task that we've designed for you. This is set up on the workstation as a probing module. This plastic element that's on the surface comes off. There's a couple of set screws, and there's a piece of paper, a template that fits in between that allows a probe to punch through where those little holes are. And the holes are numbered, so the idea is to go in order and practice your triangulation skills. So you have to do a lot with this. You have to identify those numbers with some deliberate efforts with your scope. Now you notice that these walls have angles, and the reason for that is that in order to see into the wall there, for example, at the number 15, you have to rotate your scope that way. And if I try to see anything on this wall, it's impossible because the scope has to be rotated back in that direction. So we're going to put the scope in this top portal and bring our probe in underneath. And I'll just demonstrate, for example, how we run through this. So number one, we see over here, I'm going to come in through with my probe and make a little spot there. And now I've got to find number two. Where's number two? It's up here. I'm going to center, I'm going to steady, and I'm going to push in with my probe and make a little hole. And now we need to find number three. Where's number three? It might be over here. So I'm going to rotate my scope. I'm going to do my best to center that. I'm going to get my horizon control, and I'm going to poke in and make a little hole in number three. And now I'm going to look for number four. Where is four? I've got to rotate my scope looking down because this is on the upper surface. I'm going to take my hand, grab my probe, push down, make a little hole. And so I don't need to demonstrate the entire exercise. I think you understand the concept here. But the objective here is to search out these numbers and deliberately make a hole in sequence. And for example, a metric for this would be completion of successfully poking through all the numbered holes and timing that to see how long it took to accomplish the task. Okay, this is another exercise to challenge you with your basic arthroscopic triangulation skills. And this is a maze that has been created. The objective with the maze is to move a ball, there are ball bearings, from one side to the other, and to do this under arthroscopic control. And these balls come in different sizes in your kits, and so the larger ball is the easier one to manipulate. The smaller one is more difficult. And so you bring in the scope from the top in, and you can see the ball bearing. We don't want to work like this. We'd like to work with the horizon. And this is sort of intuitive here, how to keep this on the horizon, not like this. You can choose to rotate your scope in any direction, side to side. I'm going to choose to do it looking straight down to minimize distortion. And this is a kind of a fun game. The objective here is to go from there to there, and let's figure out where my ball might go. So I'm going to bring the probe in and gently push this ball through the maze, and the objective is to keep the image centered and to push this ball along and to help it find its way deliberately through. You need to be a little gentle here, even with this larger ball bearing, because if you push it super hard, it'll pop out of this track, and that would not be a good thing. Now, what's the clinical relevance of this skill besides just basic triangulation that I'm doing with, in this case, my right hand? This is what you would need to do, for example, with a loose body, because the loose bodies kind of move around in the joint, and you have to have the ability to track them, to move them, and to retract them from the joint. So in this case, I'm getting very close with my probe to hubbing out. I can just about get there. Sometimes you might have to change the portal. You might have to use an extra long probe, but I'm successfully at the end. And the metrics for performance here would be successfully not knocking the ball out of the track, and time. Now, this little ball is obviously going to be a lot more tricky because there's more play. As you can see, I'm having a hard time even getting it out of the dish to get started. So this is quite a challenging exercise. It's fun. We made it, so hopefully you'll have fun. But there it is, kicking along. And I think just in the interest of time, I won't necessarily demonstrate the entire exercise, but you get the point. It's very easy to knock this ball out and to have it fly around if you're not careful. I want to emphasize one other thing here, and that is it really is important to practice these skills with both hands. You have to learn how to triangulate and be ambidextrous. So let's see if I can do this with my left hand and in a similar way push the ball along and move it along the track. One thing, if you're starting to get frustrated with these balls sticking to your probe, they are metallic, and if your probe is magnetized in any way, that can cause some problems. So make sure that if you're struggling, your probe hasn't become a magnetic problem. But this is our little probing exercise, and I successfully knocked it out. That's cheating, by the way. That's not a success. That's cheating going across the track. But there's your maze exercise of the fast workstation. This is just to demonstrate one of the modules that we've placed into the workstation that really has some value now. Hopefully will have more value to you later. But this is an iPhone holder, or it could be used for any smartphone, I suppose. But realize that the touch screen on your smartphone requires that you do some essentially motor skills with your eyes and your fingers. So we've taken advantage of this technology because we can use this in our workstation. So this allows the phone to be tipped and rotated any way you want. And if you take your dome and put that over, you can actually use the arthroscope to come in and see your smartphone. And it's possible to see this because the screen of the smartphone becomes a source of light. I've taken off the light source there because it decreases the glare. And the idea here is that we can use our smartphone to practice some of our triangulation skills. For example, there's an Anna Fast app that we're developing. You can use this to play games if you want to. And there are probes that you can use that go on the tip of one of these devices, or you can buy the commercial probes that basically mimic your fingertip, and you can use the touch screen to practice some of your triangulation skills. So more to come on this in terms of products that we'll have for you, but just keep in mind that you can use your smartphone to direct triangulation skills if you want to.